Hello, hello. Welcome to today's episode of our LinkedIn Audio Mindset Strategies for Sales Success. We are excited to see all of you here, and as you're joining us, playing a little music, hopefully see some activity in the comments. Would love to hear where you're all tuning in from. Carlos and I are excited to get to know each of you, share some value with all of you, and we're also going to be looking for some people who want to step into the hot seat, maybe have some questions, want to get our ears on what's going on for you and support you through it. So be ready. If you want to volunteer, we will be looking for you. So Carlos, are you here with us?
Hey, Nicole. Good morning. I'm excited to be here today.
Good
I know that we
morning.
got some folks that'll be tuning in the next few minutes, but I figured we could take these first 5 minutes to kind of introduce ourselves formally for those who may be listening to us for the first time. So I'm Carlos Garcia. I'm a sales coach and founder of Exceed Sales. And one thing that Nicole and I have in common is that we're both actually what are called exactly what to say certified guides. And so we met maybe 6-7 months ago, Nicole, in one of our mentorship mastermind meetings, and we decided to collaborate in doing some stuff together. We've done a few things together already, and today we figured, something that Nicole and I are very passionate about is talking to folks around how to level up their mindset so they can show up successfully in conversations, and specifically sales conversations that could hold us back so much from greatness, from showing up being our authentic selves without feeling like we're trying to be pushy or slimy. Because what I have found, Nicole, and I'm sure that you've also seen this, is that people sometimes associate selling as something that's like ew, right? Like gooey, or like that we're pushy. And so we want to talk a little bit about that. So what are your thoughts around that?
Yeah, listen, I totally understand when people feel that way because I felt that way. And it is a very uncomfortable feeling. And I think that there's a stigma around what selling is, and it holds us back from doing it. And that's really where I feel very passionate about helping people, because if it's holding you back from sharing your gifts with people who could benefit from them, then it's a thought that's not serving you. And that's all it really is, right? It's a thought. It's just a belief that you've been thinking over and over again. And the fact that you feel pushy and that's holding you back from helping somebody, we need to eradicate that, because you're not actually doing anything other than helping someone when you're selling them something. And if we really believe that, then we'll do more of it. If we don't believe that, we'll hold ourselves back from doing it. And that's what I see more often than not, is people actually holding themselves back. It's not that they can't make sales, it's that they're not putting themselves in the opportunities to make those sales because of the way that they feel. And when we stop ourselves from doing something because we feel a certain way, then we've really got to investigate those feelings and understand what selling is serving. You're serving another person. And, I'm just going to come right out and say it. I like to tell my clients, and if anybody's on here who's ever worked with me, we say, you're fucking welcome. You're fucking welcome that I put all of this together to help you in the way that, I've learned from my own experiences, the things that I have understood that can benefit you. You're welcome that I put it together in a way that you can purchase it so that you can get the support that you need to become the version of yourself that you're looking to become in whatever it is that you're looking to do. So I think when our beliefs are holding us back from helping more people, that's where we've really got to take a step back and go, okay, what's going on here? And how can I shift that so that I can do more of this work that helps people?
Yep. So I want to do a little test to see if our participants are paying attention and they want to play this game. I love playing games, right, Nicole? Because when
Yeah, that's
we
what it's
play
all
games, we have
about.
fun. When we have fun, we learn. So I'm gonna read a
Yes.
couple of examples. And Nicole, feel free to play if I do a pause and you think of one. I'm gonna do a couple of conversations with myself that I've had before, and I'm gonna be a little vulnerable here. And I'm sure some of you have felt this way. And if you have, just send me a little love emoticon, a little heart emoticon, or a clap emoticon if you feel like you've said this to yourself before. Okay. I don't want to feel pushy. I don't want to feel salesy. I'm afraid to charge a higher price. I always do the same thing over and over again. Oh, I could never do that. If I charge too high, people will think I'm greedy. Nicole, you got any that you've ever set to yourself
Um,
that's held you back?
thumbs up on all of it. Yes. Those were like my anthems for a while. I mean, to be honest, like one of the reasons that I feel so passionate about this work is I have been there. I have felt all those things. And, for those that don't know, I was a high school teacher for 15 years. And to step out of that career and go into a sales career, I had all kinds of hangups around being salesy. I had all kinds of fears around being that stereotypical salesperson that we all have the idea of in our mind. And that was the last thing in the world that I wanted to be. And it almost absolutely got in the way of me doing anything in that career because I was so afraid of feeling that way.
Yeah, and so many times, these are some things that, like you said earlier, is the stories that we tell ourselves. And sometimes when you tell the story enough times, you tend to believe it. And when you believe it, it stops you
Hmm.
from taking the proper action to change the your circumstances. So if you're in a place where you feel like maybe you're undercharging, you could charge more. Maybe you feel like there's something that's stopping you from raising your prices. I get that a lot in my field. We have a lot of professional services, knowledge professionals or creative professionals. If you're somewhere in this place, we there's this concept where our thoughts are what generate our emotions and our feelings. And based on how we feel, then that drives what actions we decide to take. We could
Yep.
universally transfer this to things like nutrition, things like exercising, things like going for any other types of goals outside of just sales, even just going out there, even content creation. I mean, I've had people who said I can never be in front of a camera. I can never be in front of a camera. We're using what's called absolutes. When you say never,
Hmm.
always, right? It's we got to look for the evidence to sometimes challenge those limiting beliefs.
Right. And if you are going to use an absolute, make sure it's in a belief that serves you, right? Everything always works out for me. I mean, that there's a time where you could use an absolute where that's a belief that's always going to serve you. It's always going to help you. And to your point, Carlos, a belief is just a thought that we think over and over. And we take action based on our beliefs. So whatever you believe is what you are willing to take action on. And so if you're believing thoughts that aren't serving you and aren't leading you towards the opportunities to create more of what you're looking to create, then you've got to investigate that belief and say, "Hey, is this true? Is this serving me? Is this working for me? What could I choose to believe instead?" And you brought up social media, Carlos. I know sometimes it's not even I could never be on video. I've heard people say, "Well, it doesn't matter what I do on social media, it doesn't work. Nobody sees what I post." Well, guess what that belief is going to lead to? You're not going to be motivated to post. You're not going to be motivated to show up and actually provide value online because you have a belief underlying all of that that says nobody sees it anyways, nobody cares about it. I don't get engagement or the algorithm doesn't help me. So therefore, I don't like to do anything on social media because, right, of the algorithm. All of these beliefs are actually driving where we choose to take action. So in a sales perspective, what are some of the beliefs that we have that are stopping us from taking action? And I would say first and foremost, a lot of people have that fear of I don't want to be pushy
Yeah.
or I don't want to be salesy.
Yeah, and as I'm reflecting on some of these things you're sharing, Nicole, how does this tie back to what we do with exactly what to say, right? And Phil Jones, who is our mentor and the creator, author of the book, but also creator of this methodology, there are four cornerstones that we've shared with you before to have conversational excellence on the external side.
Mhm,
But he recently did a webinar to me that was just mind blowing, and basically he flipped it he inversed the four cornerstones. And for those of you who are not familiar with the work, we'll go over it one by one. But the one that I would share with you is thinking about the moments where you have those critical situations show up, where your mindset is at risk of not serving you.
mhm,
That's what you want to identify. Where are those moments? And it's the worst time to think about the thing you're going to say is in the moment you're going to say it. That's typically a mantra that we share with folks when we're having conversations with customers. The way that Phil flips it
mhm,
for self-talk is the worst time to think about to say, the thing you're going to say to yourself is in that moment. And how many times have we ever felt
mhm.
rejected or we ever felt, just negative over a circumstance, maybe because we haven't started, or we're afraid of failure, or we already got rejected, whatever that looks like. And in that moment, we need to be kind with ourselves instead of judgmental, and also be curious.
Right. Yep. Yep. And curious with ourselves is the only way that we can ever really truly be curious with others, right? Like we can only take others as far as we have gone ourselves. So if you aren't doing this same work on yourself, then ultimately, how could you possibly lead others towards this, regardless of what it is that you're doing? And since we're talking about curiosity, I think that's the most important piece to remember. Staying curious with ourselves is kind, is caring, in the same way that being curious in a sales conversation with someone else is kind and caring. And if you're not willing to show that to yourself, how could you possibly, in integrity, show it to someone else? Right. So, I always like to say our first sale is ourselves. There's no sale more important than the sale you make on yourself. And you have to do that every day. This isn't something, it's like going to the gym, oh, I went to the gym for 8 weeks and now I got toned arms. I'm good. It's like this is something that we have to cultivate and work on every single day so that what we are working with is actually serving us. And when I say what we are working with, it's our thoughts, our beliefs, our mind, how we show up for ourselves is how we're going to show up for other people. And if we're not working on that every single day and really investigating our beliefs, because if, for example, if you feel pushy, if that's your fear and you've got this belief of like, when I'm selling, I'm pushy, then ultimately, how are you ever going to take a stand for someone in a sales conversation? You're probably not going to be willing to take a stand for them and, show up for them because you're afraid of being pushy. And if that's the thing you fear the most, then you're going to hold yourself back. And then how are you really in service to that person? So it's like when we aren't doing the work on ourselves, we're actually failing others in how we show up for them. And I think that's a harsh reality, and some people might not like hearing that, but that's really what it is. If we're not taking care of ourselves, if we're not being our best selves and making sure that we are planting and creating and cultivating the thoughts and beliefs in our mind that serves us, then we actually are failing because we're not showing up fully for others.
It's funny, Nicole. I was literally thinking about this yesterday because obviously, as we're prepping for this, you kind of tend to start really putting a lot of energy towards,
Oh,
hey,
yeah.
what do I want to share? And I was thinking about this idea because recently I just started picking up my workout routine again. I started getting more consistent with it because I dropped it off. As you know, I've been traveling the world a little bit this year. I've been in Spain. I'm in
Mhm.
LA right now, and sometimes that really throws off your routine. So I gained a little weight.
Yeah.
Again, just be honest here, and I started like picking up my exercise routine. I started feeling better because of it. But I think about, for those who like going to the gym and like that physical exercise routine, I'll leave with you this thought: is what is your mental fitness routine to be mentally fit, to be mentally
Yeah.
healthy, to be prepared, to have a clear mind when it comes to showing up for conversations with customers, showing up for conversations in your personal life, so that you can have the energy and the right clear thinking process and the right positive mindset so you can show up successfully. And so I thought that was quite interesting. And I figured, this is not just going to be just Nicole and I chatting today, but would love to challenge those who are here. If you're here, it's for a reason. First, we celebrate you for being here and we thank you for being here, listening for ideas to
Mhm.
help you level up your mental fitness and your mindset so that you can be successful in sales. But we also would love to invite to have a conversation with you. Jump on here if you're feeling courageous. We'll celebrate you, but we'll also love to learn what could be some things that have been holding you back recently from being able to achieve your
Mm.
potential when it comes to sales. Are there obstacles that you run into? Are there things that stop you from showing up your best or being motivated? Or maybe are there self-talk things that you feel like that it's something that you want to get better at, but you feel a little stuck? And maybe Nicole and I can help
Mhm.
navigate through that with you. Um, so let me just pause. And Nicole, would you add anything to that as we encourage those to raise their hands and maybe just chat with us, ask some questions about mindset or share their journey with us.
Yeah, yeah, for anybody who's courageous enough, like I said earlier, we've been there, and I still visit there from time to time. This is not a, like, once you're there, you're good. Now I just sell things all the time. It's like, no, I've still got to do this work every single day on myself so that I'm showing up in my fullest expression, in my best way that I can show up, because that's the only way for me to truly help others. And so this is something that Carlos and I are doing, and we work with our clients to do consistently. So for those of you that are courageous enough to step up, that want to share with us what's going on, we'd love to support you. I know, like for me, when I was still in my corporate job, I was learning in that first year or two what I needed to work through so that I could show up, so that I could feel confident making more sales. And I always felt that fear of being pushy. And one day I had this breakthrough and I realized, why shouldn't it be me? Why shouldn't it be me that people are buying from? Nobody gives a shit as much as I do. I care about these people. I really want to help them. And what am I going to do? If I take myself out of the game, then what I'm saying is it's okay to go to my competitor. Just go get help from my competitor because they'll be able to help you too. Well, no, 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 no. I'm the person that cares so much about them. Why would I send them anywhere else but in my care? And if they don't need my care, that's okay. But if they do, I'm the perfect person for them because nobody else is going to go over and above and beyond the way I am. Nobody's going to care about them the way that I do. And I'm not saying other people don't care about them, but what I'm saying is I had this click all of a sudden in my brain, like, I actually care about people. That's why I'm doing this. Of course it should be me. If they're going to spend their money somewhere, if they're going to buy from somebody, why shouldn't it be me? And that's what I want to help people realize is, like, you're the best person to help them because you are the expert and you do care so much about this work. And that's why you do it. So if anybody's questioning that, if they're having doubts or they've got this underlying belief of, like, I don't want to be salesy or I can't charge higher prices, let Carlos and I support you through that, so that we can get you back out there doing what you do at a high level.
Yeah, that's great. And I'll do this. I'll be the first one to go up. Okay. So I'm going to share my story, and hopefully this inspires others to kind of say, you know what, I'm going through that journey right now, or hopefully it inspires you. And I guess I'll get to see it through your feedback. But before I do share my story, I do want to give a quick shout out to a few folks I recognize: Seshu, Patty, hello, Mark, Alejo, Adriana, thank you for being here. Antonio,
Yeah.
my friend, is on as well, and others. Thanks for again for joining. So I'm gonna tell you my story, okay? My story that like just threw my entire like life upside down. I was working in a corporate career, super successful, very high status executive in a bank, and I went through every rank you can think of. I went from sales professional to credit coach to district manager to small business coach. And I had gone through not only the sales journey, but also had the pleasure of coaching over 25, 30 small business bankers for the 15-year career that I had, in addition to being an individual producer who had to also sell directly to customers. I decided to take a pivot in my career in 2021. I made the decision. In 2021, I actually pulled the trigger. When I left on my own terms. I didn't get laid off, none of that. I just decided I want to be free. I want to have free ideas. I want to be an entrepreneur. I want to be a sales coach for the world, and outside of just these four walls. I think my potential is greater, and I felt limited by my ideas and creativity. So I did it, right? And I was scared as heck. I gotta tell you, you leave a six-figure job with a guaranteed paycheck every 2 weeks, and you do your own thing. It's
Mhm.
super exciting to be free, but then it's super scary to not have that anymore. So, long story short, my brother, who I consider one of my greatest mentors, had been convincing me for like 7 years to do this thing, right? Finally, I say, fine, I'll do it. Him and his partners were gracious enough to hire me as a part-time consultant, which gave me a little bit of income, a whole lot less than what I was making, but enough to have a little safety net. And in the meantime, I told him, look, I want to leave the bank, but I don't know what I want to do. And he's like, well, what do you love to do? I was like, well, I love sales coaching. He's like, great. Do you have a product? I'm like, no. He's like, what would you sell? Training. I was like, okay, do you have a presentation? I'm like, no. Finally, I end up building a PowerPoint presentation. It took me like 2 months to do it. And he's like, I show it to him and he's like, this is great. You can sell this. Do you have a customer? I'm like, nope. All right, go find a customer.
Mhm.
Right. So I find a lead. I do the sales call. Right. And of course, this is natural to me. I can close the deal. And then I go back and I go, hey, I got the client. I'm thinking about sending a proposal. He goes, what are you thinking of charging them? And in my head, Nicole, I swear to you, in my head, because I didn't recognize my own value, I thought 500 bucks. My
Mhm.
brother, I know him and he's like, he's going to say that's too little. So I'm like, all right, well, I'm going to show him. So I say $700. He goes, that's way too little. Charge 2,500. Literally my jaw drops, my heart stops. I'm like, what? Right? Like I had no concept of like how the heck am I going to be worth this? And that to me was a
Uh-huh.
critical moment of like me undervaluing my 15 years of knowledge and experience and how much work I needed to do on recognizing my own value. But thanks to having, someone that knew my worth and kind of helped me validate that I could charge that. Long story short, we sent the proposal for that price and we ended up closing the deal. It gave me so much confidence, right? To understand
Mhm.
where my value was at. Now, if any of you have ever felt that way, right? Like when you had your first client, you charged like the littlest possible because you had no idea, you had no track record. I mean, give me a
Yep.
love or a clappy emoji or a thumbs up if you've ever been in that space, right? But all of that stems from kind of what you believe your worth is, right? So as I
Yep.
share that with you, Nicole, what from that resonates with you?
I mean, same thing. I was terrified. So when I left my corporate job, so like you know, I had corporate job, top performer, and was coaching other people unofficially on the side because Carlos, once you get to a certain point, people are like, "Hey, can you show me that? Will you help me with that?" And so I just enjoyed helping people, and I started doing it, like I said, unofficially. And then I kind of accidentally started building a coaching business, I guess. Well, it wasn't accidental. I mean, I certainly wanted to be a coach. I just didn't know that that was what I was going to coach in. And as I started doing it, just like you, I didn't value or understand what incredible value I was bringing to the opportunities. And it was hard for me to step into owning what I knew it was worth. Um, and that was always the biggest sticking point for me is what am I going to charge? And just like you, my first my first sale, my first package was $2,500 and I just remember being so nervous about selling something for $2,500 and yet when I was selling it and working with people, it was helping them sell packages for $2,500, $6,000. Like they were going on to from what I was teaching them and what they were learning from working with me to make a lot of money. And it's like, well, wait a minute, isn't that what the whole point of this is? I'm bringing value to help them step into more confidence around what they're doing. And before long, that $2,500 was, I had people paying me easily. And so at the time, just like you, I had a coach that I was working with, and she said, "You're not charging enough. You need to raise your prices." So then I had gotten comfortable at that price, and then it was time to raise my prices to something else. And I stepped into that, and I had to create a whole bunch of beliefs in order for me to step into that. And then things started selling out at that price, and then I raised my prices again. And this wasn't like an overnight easy thing. It was I had to keep working on myself and my beliefs. And I think one of the most important pieces in that story is I also had somebody that believed in me that could hold that space for me as I was learning how to step into that belief for myself. Because that wasn't something that's just, you just have that you just, okay, well, this is what I'm going to do and this is how I'm going to do it. There's a lot of work that goes into so that you can step into that and really believe it. So for me, it was a similar experience. And then once you sell a couple of things at that certain price, whatever it is, you're like, okay, now I've got a little confidence. It's not that it's not that things changed and all of a sudden you're worth that amount. You were always worth that amount. It's what changed inside of you that made the biggest difference. And so I think that's really what we're here talking about, right? If you want to change things on the outside, change things on the inside. So if there's something not working for you in your results and your outcomes in what it is that you're doing, there's something that is on the inside that you can shift. There's nothing wrong with you. There's just some things that can be shifted that are going to make a big difference on how you show up for those opportunities on the outside.
Yeah, that's wonderful. Thanks for sharing that story. I think what you said there, which is like it's about changing what's inside of us, and for us to be open minded enough to go to someone that we could trust, that will guide us, mentor us, and coach us. Right? Not someone who's going to tell us what to do, but they're gonna try to do what's best for us because they know us. They know they've probably been through that journey. Right? They know what steps you need to take to overcome some of these obstacles. They genuinely want you to be
Yep.
successful, and that is so crucial. So again, opening it
Yep.
up to those who are listening. And listen, we don't have to go specifically into mindset. I know this stuff can be a little bit personal, but we are sales coaches. So if you have sales challenges, bring them on. Raise your hand. There's a little button in the LinkedIn Live that says raise my hand, and why are you here? We're curious. Something must have piqued your curiosity, and there's something that's getting in your way of
Mhm.
being able to level up your sales, being able to level up your confidence, being able to level up your prices, whatever that is. We'd love to provide you with free coaching. This is stuff that we charge for, so don't be shy. Raise your hand and tell us what are some of the sales challenges
Sep
you're working through, and maybe could it be possible that some of that stems from some of the thoughts that are feeding those beliefs.
And you mentioned, this is personal, and it is, because what a lot of people want to do, and I'm sure you've seen this quite often in your coaching as well, Carlos, is what do I do? What do I do to get better results? What do I do? Right? They want activity, they want a plan, they want some kind of like physical, tangible activity that they can be doing that's going to shift their outcome and their results. And to me, we don't want to jump right into doing something different. We want to be something different. You taking different action is going to give you the same results if you haven't changed what you are, who you are being when you're taking that action. And so I think a lot of times that activity suggestions can be a band aid that aren't actually solving the problem for people. They're like, I want better sales. I want more sales. I want to feel more confident. Well, this isn't necessarily you're not following the right sales plan. This has a lot to do with what's going on personally, what your beliefs are, what's going on in terms of how you're showing up and who you're being. And I think that's something that took me a long time to understand, because there's so many different ways out there to sell that if you just go learn another method or learn a new technique or learn a new thing, right? That's the doing that you think is going to solve the problem. But it's really all inside. And so, like you said, Carlos, for those that want to step up, like we're here to coach you, to help you. That's what this is all about today. So if you have anything personally that you'd like to ask us, we're here for it. And if there's anything you'd like us to cover as we're talking and sharing different examples, please let us know, because I think sometimes things might come up for you based on how Carlos and I are sharing things that we've been through, because we've been through it all. Like I said, when I first joined after 15 years of teaching, I went into my corporate job and it was like, I don't want to be salesy. I don't want to be pushy. And that held me back for a long time. But also on that very first day of that job, my district manager called me in and he said, listen, I know you're nervous. I know this is your first day and you're coming from a 15-year teaching career. So it feels like you don't know what you're doing. But I'm going to give you the most important piece of sales advice. And it's this: you're not necessarily going to have the cheapest prices. You're not necessarily going to have the best service. You're not necessarily going to have, the same products as, basically everything you're going to be doing, everybody else can do. All of your competitors can do. At the end of the day, people are going to buy from you because they like you. And there's a lot of other things that I know go into it, but at the end of the day, it really is about this is about relationships. And how can people like you if you're so busy not believing that what you do is valuable and important and helpful for them? How can people like you if you don't completely like you? And I know that it might sound cheesy to some people, but like so much of your success in sales has to do with your relationship with yourself. And that was some of the best advice that I have ever gotten around selling. People will buy from you because they like you. And the reason that he said that, you might not have the cheapest prices, you might not have, like, all of those things are true, because at the end of the day, if all things are equal, why is somebody going to buy from you when they could get the same thing from a bunch of different sources? They're going to buy from you because they like who you are. They like how they feel when they're in your presence. And in order to help more people feel that from you, you've got to show up fully to be there for them, to serve them, to support them. And the only way you can do that is if you're doing that for yourself as well.
Yeah, that's absolutely huge. And people want to do business with people they know, like, and trust. We know that quote. I believe it's from Seth Godin who says that. But I think about
Mhm.
trust being one of the biggest, relationship accelerators. If you can't show up feeling confident that you can solve someone's problem, because maybe in the back of your head while you're presenting your price, or you're asking questions, or you're talking over the customer, you're not showing that you're actively listening because you're nervous, right? You don't want to lose the deal. All of this stuff stems from mindset. But they can't trust you if you're nervous. They can't trust you if you can't show that you've done this before, you've done it for someone like them, right? And you've done it recently.
Yep.
And it reminds me of these steps. There's these 6 steps, because I know that you said, Nicole, people like things that they want to be able to take away to do. And I took these six
Mhm.
steps away from, I want to say it's from the several resources, but I believe it's from the Growth Mindset book by Carol Dweck. And basically, these are
Mhm.
6 steps you can leverage to overcome whenever you feel like you have a what's called a limiting belief. So what I want you to do first is write down what could be a thing you're saying to yourself right now that could be stopping you from taking the action that you want so that you can get the outcome that you want. Write the actual thing you say to yourself. I could never be in front of a camera. I could never charge that much. I don't want to feel pushy, right? Like, I don't want to seem greedy. I don't like promoting myself. Whatever the heck it is that you're saying to yourself that's stopping you from taking the outcome, the action that you want to get the outcome you want. So the first is identify
Mhm.
that this can be a limiting belief. Okay, that's the first thing. Just write it down, then identify that this, just recognize this could be a limiting belief. The next is challenge it, and you challenge it by asking, does this belief fit the facts? Is there evidence to support that this is true? And then ask yourself, what could be the potentially damaging consequences if you continue to believe this limiting belief, this thing that's holding you back? It could be you're not going to grow, you're not going to scale, you're not going to be able to charge higher prices, you're not going to be able to say no to customers that are what I call habitual line steppers, that you say yes to all the time, you can never set boundaries to. And then ask yourself a couple of questions, stay curious, and try to help reframe it. Like, what opportunities can I get if I were to look at this different? Could it be possible that I could look at it from a different point of view? And here are some of the exactly what to say phrases we can even leverage, right, to influence ourselves.
Mhm.
As you were saying earlier, Nicole, is like we have to sell ourselves, but we do that by staying curious in challenging some of the existing beliefs. And then, as
Yep.
scary as it sounds, the last step is practice it. Practice it with the next conversation. Practice it with the next customer. And once you see that, what I like to say to myself is, you're not gonna die. You realize that, you know what, you could step forward into that positive direction that you want.
Yeah. I love that. So the 6 steps, what were those again, Carlos, if we were to review? I know first one was identify and recognize,
Hmm.
which I think is so powerful. Then we challenge it.
Yep.
And then what was the 3rd?
Try to identify what would be the consequences of not changing that limiting belief. Like, what
Mhm.
are the risks and consequences if I continue to think this way? Like, think about to your
Mhm.
business, to your personal life, to your own well-being. And then the step
Yep.
5 is adopting a new belief and asking yourself some what if questions. What if is there a new way I can reframe this? Like, what opportunities can I see from doing this differently? Could it be possible that if I tried, nothing can go wrong? Or what good can come from changing? this thought process from a different point of view, some perspective change,
Mhm.
right? And then
Mhm.
lastly is just practice. So just have the courage to try, even though it's outside your comfort zone. But the only way we grow is by
Right.
stretching ourselves.
Yeah. I love that. And practicing it too, it's one of the things that you and I offer, Carlos, with our boot camp is the opportunity is not just to learn some new phrases and some different ways to show up to your sales conversations better, but to get that practice in an environment where it's safe. I like to say role play before real play, so that the first time you're not saying it is out in front of, the people that you're saying it in front of that are important. So giving yourself that opportunity to practice. And if investing in yourself and being a part of a group like that is important, then DM Carlos and I, because we've got an opportunity for you. That's not the only way to do it. You can practice by yourself in front of a mirror. You could grab an accountability partner and practice this. But the bottom line is give yourself the opportunity to go through this so that you're not going through it for the first time in the very moment when it really matters. Because then, like Carlos said earlier, you're able to show up to that moment, not just more confidently, but more present. And that's really what we need to do more in sales conversations is show up in service to the other person, not show up with our agenda in our head hoping that it all goes the way that we want it to go, but like show up and really be present so that you can listen. Because people, you said this earlier, people buy from people they know, like, and trust. What helps them know, like, and trust you? When they feel good in your presence. And why do they feel good in your presence? Because they feel listened to, they feel heard, they feel seen by you. And when people feel that around you, they want to be around you more. That's where that trust comes from.
Hey, Nick,
So I think that's
Nicole, by the way,
important.
I threw a laugh emoji because like your transition was like the smoothest transition to talk about our boot camp. I loved it, by the way. It was awesome. I did put in a comment in the notes of the event. If you're interested, DM myself or Nicole the word mindset, and you'll learn more about the bootcamp. We have a special discount for those who joined today. And yes, we talk a lot about like the mindset to build the skills because you got to be in the right frame of mind to be able to feel confident to use. We're going to give you pragmatic language and words and magic words you can be to use to be more influential in conversations, but you also got to be in the right frame of mind so you feel confident to use
Mhm.
those words with your best self. So, by the way, just wanted to add that note. But I see my friend Alejo is on the stage. Do we want to invite him to chat with us?
Up. Yeah, let's do it.
Hey, Alejo.
There we go.
Yeah. Hello, can you
Yeah,
hear me
man.
now?
How are you, bud?
Hello.
Okay, I'm doing well. I've been listening to you while I was cooking, so I couldn't hop in
Love it.
earlier. But glad to be here. I just wanted to add some comments and maybe a small story about myself and the things that have helped me get in a good mindset. The first thing that I wanted to point out was that something I learned recently that courage it doesn't come necessarily from an innate bravery that we have. Sometimes the best way to have courage is just to have a plan. And I put this in a context, like a very silly context. People who are kind of socially awkward or they are afraid of networking or stuff like that, they're usually afraid because they don't know what they're going to do when they arrive to a party or they don't know what they're going to say, to tie it to what you guys do, and just kind of having a small outline of, okay, this is my plan of action. I'm going to arrive, I'm going to talk to this person or like two people, and I'm going to say this, or this is the information that I'm going to try to convey. That just helps people have clarity, because oftentimes the scary feeling that we have, the fear that we have, is just because we don't know what we're going to do.
Yeah.
So plan is the best way, in my opinion. At least what have worked for me, what has worked for me, is to have a plan. And the other story is like when I was in my mid 20s, and I had no idea what I was gonna do with my life because I was a graphic designer at the point, but I didn't like graphic design. I read a book that is called Rich Dad Poor Dad, and that opened the world of investing to me. I didn't know investing was a thing. And because I knew nothing, and one of the exercises of the book was go and talk with people who do this so that you can learn from it. It's like, okay, I made a list of people I knew that were successful, economically, like financially, and interview them. And the first guy that I interviewed, I he was like, yeah, let's talk about it. I was like, I want to learn about investing. I know you do that. And it's like, okay. I met with him and explained the kind of interest that I have and all that, and he listened very carefully, very patiently. And after that, he told me something that I will never, never forget. He said, before we talk about how to invest money, what is your biggest asset right now? What is making you money right now? And I paused and I was like, well, that's why I'm talking to you. I have nothing is making me money. Like, I have no real estate properties. There's nothing that I sell. And I was like, no, no, no. Pay attention carefully. What is making you money? Or maybe think it that way. Who is making you money? And I paused and I was like, well, I work, so I guess I'm making myself money. And he said, exactly. The first thing that you need to invest in is the thing that is making you the most money, which is yourself right now. And
Yep.
that like completely blew my mind. And I think from that point on, I realized that I had to be very intentional about where I put my resources. And the first place where I should put my resources is on myself, because I am the first one who is making myself the most money. From a sales perspective, that is the thing, but also I am responsible of my own happiness, of my own health, and that's where I should put all my coins first. So I
Mm.
wanted to just bring that up because I feel like what you do is very tied to that. And if it serves as an encouragement for people here, like, oh, that's right. Even if you're in those stages of, I don't have any other investments but myself, then choose to invest in yourself first because it's the best that you can do. And from a kind of testimonial perspective, it has worked for me well. And I'm very grateful for that advice that I received very early. So those are my 2 cents there. Uh, Happy to contribute.
Love that. Thank you for
Yeah.
contributing. I think that that is a really important message for everybody to hear, Alejo, because that was a lesson that took me a little bit of time to understand as well, that I am the most important investment that I can make. And I think it's very easy for a lot of people to pass up on investing in themselves in the name of like, it's more responsible to invest in something different, when really there's no more valuable investment that we could ever make other than the one we make in ourselves. And that doesn't necessarily just mean money investments,
Mm-hmm.
right? Your time investments, your energetic investments, how you're showing up for yourself. Like, what are you doing to invest in the most valuable resource that you have, which is you?
Yeah, yeah. He then framed it like, okay, so what you're doing to make money right now is you are an artist, right? So you need to become the best artist you can be so you can command more money for what you do. And he wasn't talking about hourly rate even. He was just talking about your skill. Like, the more professional you are, the more experienced you are, the more money you can command. In that way, you're being a bigger asset to yourself.
Mhm.
And of course, the conversation was around money, but then he eventually shifted to other areas of my life. And yeah, it was a big unlock, which I'm very grateful for.
Yeah, amazing. So great you had that person in
Cool.
your life to help you see that.
Hey, I want to just give a
Yeah.
quick shout out, Alejo. That was so cool, man. Thanks for sharing that personal story. So many great takeaways. What a cool mentor that you had, and actually, that is a quote from Warren Buffett. If anybody knows who Warren Buffett is, it's like America's best investor
Yeah.
that's ever existed, billionaire, business mogul. And he said, I think he was like in a car, someone recorded him. It's like, what advice do you have for young people? He said the best investment you can ever make is in yourself. The other thing I want to do is, if you haven't followed Alejo on LinkedIn, you should. He is an awesome visual graphic recording. I may have said this wrong. Visual graphic recorder. Is that what you do, Alejo?
Graphic
Ah,
recorder.
perfect.
Yeah, graphic
And
recorder.
he
Yeah.
actually sketched one of our LinkedIn audios about a month or two ago, and it was phenomenal. I love the way that
So
you see the world through your art and the way you tell stories just from an audio event. And so anyone who wants to check out his work, make sure you follow him. He's amazing. And Alejo, you and I actually met in another LinkedIn audio when we skill practiced a sales conversation. It's pretty cool,
Yeah.
man. It's been cool to see you on your journey. And again, I just want to give you your flowers for investing in yourself, actually walking the talk. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Thanks, man. I appreciate it. Appreciate it. Shout out to you.
amazing. Thanks, Alejo.
Thank you.
All right, cool. So
That's
Folks, we
awesome.
got about 14 minutes left, but if anyone wants to share, again, their story, we're here to talk a little bit about mindset. One thing that resonated with me too, from Alejo's story, Nicole, is
Mhm.
this thing that always stops us from acting, or kind of like this measuring stick that we tend to use socially. And I want you all, when you hear this quote, if you've heard it before, just give me like a thumbs up or an emoticon. But if you haven't, and if it kind of hits you in the heart in a certain way, I want you to throw down an emoji of how it makes you feel. And this quote, Nicole, I sort of got it changed my entire perspective and mindset, which is: comparison is the thief of joy. You've heard that
Yep.
one before, Nicole?
I've heard it, and it stings and rings true every single time. Because it's, I think our ego selves tend to compare because it's for safety reasons. It's how we take care of ourselves. It's how we're looking out to, to keep ourselves safe. But yet we take it emotionally to a level that does rob us of our joy, that does take us out of really appreciating who we are and what we've done. Because, there's this analogy that I really like, and I love the quote, and I appreciate that you shared it, Carlos. Something that really resonated with me years ago. I was busy comparing myself. I was busy feeling bad about where I was and what I was doing, and I wasn't doing enough. And somebody said, if a goldfish were to compare itself to its ability to climb a tree, it would feel really stupid. And a goldfish isn't a monkey, and a monkey isn't a goldfish, right? So the idea that like comparison is so unfair to everybody that's being compared, to everybody in that instance, because we are individual and unique, because we're not meant to be compared to anybody else. We're meant to be here living our own life, doing our own thing. And even even my financial advisor the other day said something. This is just in terms of money. He said it's a great tool, it's a terrible scoreboard. And I think we tend to look at things like money when we're comparing, and we make ourselves wrong, we make ourselves bad, we make ourselves not enough because of a certain number. No different than the number on a scale. A lot of people do the same thing. They step on a scale and they decide their worth that day based on a number that they're looking at. And I don't care if it's your bank account, if it's your number of followers on Instagram, if it's the scale that you step on every day. Like, we've got to stop comparing to others and comparing to numbers that diminish who we actually are and what we were born to be on this earth and on our journey.
Yeah, that's huge. That's huge, especially like when we create these expectations of ourselves that may not be realistic. Because I was reading this book, it's called The Courage to Be Disliked, and it also talks about the problem with comparing ourselves is that everyone's on a different journey. So oftentimes what happens, especially with social media, we watch all these videos of all these successful people, and especially even in our own like close circle, and we see them with expensive cars and successful lives, or maybe influencers showing this facade of whatever. And it we can't compare ourselves if we're on chapter 2 of our story to somebody's chapter 20 of their story, right?
Right.
And so we need to just keep that perspective that you have to compare your chapter 2 to a chapter 2. Like, it's unrealistic. And so one thing that I'm going to just shout out Phil Jones, who shares this idea of how to better level set a score, is what are some success metrics you can give yourself. And you want to give yourself kind of 3 levels of success metrics. You've heard this one before, right, Nicole? Like, what could be
Yep.
the worst that could happen, right? What would be ideal? And then the third one, he says, if it was my birthday, what would perfect look like, right? But be able to accept any of those 3 potential outcomes and learn from them and move forward, right? And if you fail,
Yep.
you take the learning lesson, see what you can change. If you succeed, you identify what were the key ingredients so that you can replicate that for the next opportunity. And what's funny
Right.
is you could use the same exact ingredients for the next opportunity, and you can fail miserably too, right? I mean, how many times has that
Yep.
happened to you with leads,
Yep.
right? Like you follow the exact same process, and like it doesn't close, and you're like, I did everything right. I asked all the questions, And so
Right.
it's not always you, right?
Right. That's exactly it. And I think, it's success is great, but I heard this quote the other day from our friend Ed Sheeran. And I mean, I wish he was really our friend, but I'm a fan of Ed Sheeran. And he was talking about um, he was terrible at singing when he was 14, like terrible. And he actually has a YouTube video of him singing at 14, and he played it, and it was awful. And he's like, we learn nothing from success. We learned nothing from, he said, when I was 14, I was terrible at this. By the time I was 19, I had written the A Team, and I had, produced it, and it was launched as my first album. And he said, but I had to be terrible in order to learn all of the things that I needed to learn. And so we learn from failure. We actually don't learn anything from success. And to your point, Carlos, a lot of times when we have a success and we try to replicate it, if we do the same things again and it doesn't work out the same way, we're like, well, wait a minute, what happened? Well, that's not because it's an automatic guarantee that it's going to work out every single time just because it did once. And, if we were speaking in terms of like sales conversations, I mean, people are humans, they're individuals. Just because something worked in a sales conversation once doesn't mean the next individual that you talk to it's going to work for. People aren't robots. This isn't like automatic, but it is an understanding of like, how can I take the success that I created in previous conversations and look at what was effective, what did work, how can I do more of that, how can I make people feel seen and heard and cared about, from that standpoint, because we aren't going to learn as much from success as we are from failure. And I think that that's a great way to redefine what a failure actually is. Nothing's gone wrong, nothing's bad, it's just an opportunity to learn better.
Yeah, and there's this old mantra that I learned when I was first in an individual producer role where I had sales goals of some sorts. And I remember like they gave us this like activity formula, and all I was thinking about, because we had an incentive plan, we had goals to meet, was the goal and how far I was from it, right? Like every day I check out the scorecard. You were used to work in corporate and these kind of companies where they would have reports, and they would either rank you too against the other salespeople. And like how stressful was that? Like
Mhm.
the imposter syndrome kicks in and you see yourself really far from the goal. And I remember this really, really wise leader told me, he's like, you can't control the outcomes, but you can control your activities. And if you
Yep.
just focus on what are the activities that you need to do, and you keep on focusing on that, going back to you did the same activities, but you didn't get the outcome. Like oftentimes our reptilian brain comes up and starts going into imposter syndrome. I'm like, oh my God, I'm doing everything I can, and I'm not seeing the results. That tends to be the moment where we go into panic mode, and we think about giving up, or we think about like just quitting or whatever, like all these things. And trust me, I've been in that mode where I'm like 3 months without closing a deal, and I'm like, that's it, I'm shutting down the studio. If anybody's seen the Making the Band comedy from Dave Chappelle, you know what I'm talking about. Insert record scratch. Um, but anyways, like it doesn't feel that way sometimes, and it's like what I got to go back to that. All right, what activities can I control? I'm still gonna do my weekly videos. I'm still gonna do my blog. I'm still gonna do my things. And little did I know that that window of variability and revenue and leads and all that stuff started closing down because I stayed focused on my activities. I didn't let that
Wow.
moment of panic have me quit or go down the negative thought loop spiral or whatever that could stop me from continuing to go.
Something that I learned from our mentor and friend Phil Jones, is just made such a huge impact on me to help me with beliefs around when things aren't working. And his quote is, the day you plant the seed is not the day you eat the fruit. And another way I like to say it is, the work you do today may not pay today, but it will still pay. And that's another Phil quote as well. And both of those help me reframe, just like you said, Carlos, we can't control the outcome, we can control the activity. So I like to say, control the controllables. And part of those controllables are what we believe, what our thoughts are, how we treat ourselves, how we are taking care of ourselves, how we are cultivating a relationship with ourselves, so that we are stepping into the best version of ourselves when we are doing the activity. And if we remember that, although you can't control the outcome, you can control the activity, that's a belief then that ultimately, and the other belief, the day you plant the seed is not the day you eat the fruit. Those beliefs help you continue to show up and do that activity, even when you don't have the physical proof per se that it's going to work out. Because, like you said, maybe you go a couple of months and you goose egg, meaning, zero sales, nothing new, nothing's coming in. How do you keep going? How do you keep showing up? How do you keep putting yourself out there when that stuff isn't working out in physical examples, tangible examples? And it's the beliefs that we choose to cultivate and create that are going to help us keep going, even when we don't have that physical evidence to justify why we should keep going. So I think that's one of my favorite beliefs that, I still work on all the time. The day you plant the seed is not the day you eat the fruit. So give it time to nurture and grow. And in the meantime, what can you be doing on a consistent basis to show up and still create using consistent activity? Because that's what you can control.
Ooh, you dropped a couple of good ones there, Nicole. I learned a few new ones. So that's cool. Hey, Nicole, we got 3 minutes left. Would it be helpful if we circle back with the folks, just recap some of the things that we discussed, and then let them know how they can work with us some more if they're interested in leveling up their mindset and their sales skills?
Yes, absolutely. So some of the people on here with us have already signed up for our boot camp. I know some who are on here are interested in it. We are running a 4-week boot camp where we are taking you through foundational pieces so that you understand how to show up more impactful and influential in your sales conversations. And that also covers things like what we've been talking about today, which is mindset. So we've got magic phrases, we've got mindset, we've got role play, we've got customization to your specific conversations in this 4-week boot camp. And ultimately, it really is going to help you not show up to your important moments without thinking about what you're going to say first. That's what we're going to cover in this boot camp is how can you show up prepared? And for those that are interested, DM Carlos and I, we've got a really special deal today where you can get $60 off the investment that you're going to make in yourself. Today would be a great way to do it so that you can get some of that money off. And like I said, if you're interested, DM us. We'll send you the link so you can check it out. No pressure at all. If it's not for you, that's totally cool. And then if you are interested, we'll send you the code so that you can get the early bird pricing today.
That was awesome, Nicole. I love chatting with you, and it was cool to see Alejo jump on today. And just thanks everybody for joining today, to spend your hour with
Oh,
us. Again, I'm always want to end this with gratitude. You could be spending your time doing anything else, but you decided to be with us and put up with us for an hour. And our aim was to help you walk away with one or two actionable things. I hope to get a direct message from each of you just to share with me what was your biggest takeaway from this, or if you have any success stories. We want to celebrate you regardless of whether you join our boot camp or not. You came here,
yes,
invest in yourself, and we're coaches, so naturally we're always going to be curious to know what did you do with what we shared with you today, and how can we continue to help.
yes. Yes, whether you join our boot camp or not, what we want to know is that you took what you were able to learn here today and applied it. That's the most valuable thing that anybody could do is take action on that. So we'd love to hear from you. Send us a DM, even if you're not interested in the boot camp, send us a DM and say, hey, here's what I learned. Thanks so much. And just one more thing for everybody who was here. Um, we've done a couple of these LinkedIn audios and you get to hear our voice and we get to chat through and share some value for an hour. If you want to actually see us face to face, there's an opportunity that we have coming up very soon to do that as well. Even prior to our boot camp, we are running a webinar happening on June 12th. If you want to make sure that you get the invite to that, send us a DM and we'll make sure that we send you the invite to the webinar. That is a free webinar. And if you are interested in joining our boot camp, then let us know that and we'll get you in on the early bird pricing.
All right, awesome. Thanks everybody, and until next time. Bye, Nicole. Bye, everyone.
Bye, Carlos. Bye, everybody.